So I figured, since I'm already here at his lovely house, guys, that there's nothing in this closet. There is a Child's Play doll in there one time, and then I just freaked out and started running away.
What do you... What?
Hello, people who...
Stop it.
He never wants me to do it.
Because we don't need a saying, man.
I was trying to get a slogan. He's like, no, no slogan.
Because he wants to be a superhero for some reason.
So, okay. We're going to be talking about our week... What week is this for LEC? This is week
7.
7. Day 1 predictions for the LEC Spring Split 2019. Yes. First game is going to be Origen versus Splyce. These teams have had abysmal week 5. They went 0-2, right? I think, yeah. No,
wait.
Splyce went 1-1 and Origen went 0-2, I think. Either way, they're losing a lot. And they're not really consistent. And it's looking like they're...
Which one is first? It says this one's at 9 p.m., but it says this one's at 9 p.m.
I just go off the LOA source page. That's what I do. That's the one that's always been right to us. So.
Well, they've always been the same. That's why.
I don't make the rules.
Okay, so we're going to guess this is the first game of the week.
Okay. He's like, I'll just go for it. All right, so before we go off of who might win Origen and Splyce, who is your matchup for the day for this?
If you want my honest opinion, it's really hard for me to pick. There's two really impressive, exciting matches for me. It's going to show Misfits versus Vitality. Misfits went 2-0 last week, if we saw that.
Okay.
And then I think that Vitality has been, obviously they did pretty decent against Splyce, but I don't think they've looked really incredible recently. But I think that Misfits is on an upward trajectory, so I'm kind of excited about that. And Fnatic versus Schalke. Schalke went 0-2 last week?
They've lost their last 4 games out of the last 5.
Yeah, they were ridiculously good at the beginning of the season, but I think that they've fallen off a cliff, and Fnatic is on a tear right now. I think this could be...
I think a lot of people might not really a team like Misfits and like Schalke bring early structure on, and I think that they get early wins early on in splits because other teams aren't figured out yet.
Well, how would Splyce... How can you even give that to Schalke? What did they have at the beginning?
Because when the other teams started getting better, they started falling apart.
That has nothing to do with... What did they have above other people? They came together faster, but that means...
They also had the caliber players to do it too.
They had, again, it's on paper, they had really good players. I expected a lot from them because Misfits... Schalke on paper is one of the most incredible players in one of the most talented rosters in the league. You expected a lot from them. You had Memento, who was probably the best jungler last season. You had this the best ADC in the league last year, and Ignar coming back after his incredible, besides BBQ, but he played really well on Misfits.
Yeah.
We had we had an incoming mid laner that no one really knew about, but he was kind of...
He was like the third best in his region.
He was hyped up a bit, and then we had
Odoamne, who came off Splyce.
Odoamne, and Odoamne's been... His legacy's been... He's been a pretty solid top laner, so I expected a lot from this team. But they've fallen off a cliff recently, and I could see these two games being the most exciting parts of it.
See, this is the thing, is when I look at teams like Schalke, they should be equally tied with Vitality right now with 8 and 4 wins.
I think they should be better than Vitality, to be honest.
That's the thing. I still think Vitality at the end were going to be better, but I still looked at Schalke to be that team looking forward now that is going to be the team that should be at least top. They should be fighting. Those two alone should be fighting, and then there should be a big gap between everybody else. And then it just should be G2 on their own tier. Because I think people need to understand is that G2 were horsing around and they got 9 wins. You factor in if they're taking it seriously, as what we've seen, they're destroying people even harder now. So if you're a team like Schalke and Vitality, you don't want to be dropping games to other teams because you want to show how dominant you are. And Schalke have not been adapting to this crit patch so well. Do you think it's just a patch, or it's just that more teams have just gotten better?
I think that, again, a lot of it comes down to them playing a lot worse than they did in the recent weeks. They're not playing to the same standard they did. A lot of their situations I don't think they're playing around bot as often as they used to. I think that Memento has been he's really been playing poorly recently. I think that Abedigi has been losing a lot of the lanes, so it's really...
He should never ever play Yasuo.
Well, yeah, it's been a situation where I think the side lanes are doing pretty well still. I think that this crit change should 100% impact, should be beneficial to them because, again, a large portion of their team is around bot power, their bot lane power. I think that, Upset is the best player on this team, and they should be able to play around this better because now that ADCs have more power, but that's not the case.
It just seems like they're like Misfits, but if they don't have a winning lead bot lane, they just like fall apart
Well, I
for
mean,
some reason.
the reason is that it should be fine. Again, Odoamne has been playing really well this year, but Memento is not playing up to standard, and the mid laner has been a disappointment this year. So that's the biggest reason as to why nothing's working out.
But overall, if you're looking at Origen and Splyce, which is the first game, what are you looking at for this team? Who do you think is going to win?
I'm actually going to say Origen won this pretty hard at this point because Origen, I do think they played. I'm thinking, what did they go 0-2 last week?
Yeah.
They went 0-2, but I do still think they had a hard week. Like, they played Misfits, who I think played really decently well last year.
They got better when they got their original coach back.
They played well. Like, Misfits played quite a bit well last year. I mean, last week. And on top of the fact that Fnatic has really just been on a tear this week. They smashed everybody they played this week. So I think that...
All about the Vitality game. That wasn't really a smash. That was like...
They still won by a pretty substantial amount, but Splyce, I would say that I think they got a win off Rogue. That was their one win last week, and I don't think it was incredibly good.
Oh, no. It really depends, though, what you consider well. Because Rogue have been looking a tiny bit better, so...
Rogue looks slightly better. They look like they have some sort of a
direction around the map.
That's all that it is, though. I still think they're pretty terrible. I think that then, now that they have 2 shot callers on their team, it's kind of helping out a bit with Vander and Kikis. But, like, Splyce is still a team that I think that really does not have any form of pressure in the early game, and that's really just going to be their biggest downfall because...
They've been trying that. It's just not good.
It's not good because they don't have decisive early game shot calling. It's more so they rely on stalling until late until they can force the other team into team fights, and that's not going to always work. Especially against Origen, who I think is just the more what I would say is one of the best, like in terms of just macro, is one of the better macro teams in the league. So I do think this is going to be a pretty hard stop for Origen because Origen is just like, as it stands right now, although they did go 0-2 last week, I still think they're one of the better teams in the league. I think they're going to probably end up at 5th or 6th place, and I think that Splyce is going to lose their playoff spot.
I think Splyce is kind of like Hanawa Life 2.0. If you're good enough to beat Splyce, then you're good enough to be in playoffs. They're like the gatekeepers. They're just like Hanawa Life, in my personal opinion. I think that they can beat up the lower tier teams, but after that, they just don't have the caliber players at the moment or right now that really stands above anything else. Like, they did play early game against Rogue, but realistically, anybody could have did that. They're going to probably revert back to their late game style against another team like Origen, who... It's basically a toss-up of who's going to play the late game better. That's kind of what it's like.
So, who are you saying?
I'm going to say Origen this time around. Okay. Splyce, they got that Hanawa Life syndrome. It's not looking too good for them. Okay, I still think they're going to finish around 7th, so hopefully I get that right.
Who do you think is going to finish the 7th?
Splyce. That's where I had them predicted at.
So, XL versus SK. I think that this one's a pretty... Not a really close one, to be honest. I think
SK's really adapted to the patch very well.
I don't think they've adapted. Like, it's more so I think that XL is probably the worst team in the league now that Rogue has improved. I think that XL, I mean, their strength in pretty much Expect was kind of negated when I mean last week I think he played pretty poor. So I think that XL is like XL doesn't really have a strength around the map. Casual's still this aggressive jungler, but it's not amounting to anything. They don't really have. They have the single worst ADC or second worst. Keep forgetting that Hiku exists. Jessica has just been horrible. Like, he's just not a good player in general. I think that
he'll have some hot and cold games. Like, he'll play good some weeks. But I think when you look at XL, a reason why they're not succeeding is because their mid laner is like invisible. I don't know what he does.
I like the direction that Kasing actually tries to push this team into. He does attempt to make these playmaking supports. I mean, things happen, but again, like XL's one move this year, which I think they should have made one, was replacing what I would say is one of their better players in Night. I mean, in not Night.
Exile got excelled by Exile.
Exile got exiled.
Yeah, or excelled.
No.
Oh no.
What I'm saying is, like,
why replace a piece that wasn't even a problem?
It wasn't a problem. I think he was playing fine. I don't understand why you put Special in.
He was actually playing better than what he was predicted at.
Yeah, again, I think that like Exile was playing pretty well. I mean, was he some sort of behind the scenes problem? Maybe that was it, but.
Yeah, but the replacement they got isn't any better.
He's not. He's worse, in my opinion. I think that he's had a few good games, but for the most part, I do think that Exile was probably the better player, and. Like, all around, I think that these, like, XL has really just not fixed up their problems. They've been, at the beginning of the season, I thought they were like a pretty solid 8th to 9th place team, but they've really not improved since then. They've been the same team, the same type of style. I still think that most of it's coming off Cassine trying to make things happen and them not being competent enough to follow up. So I think this is probably going to be the last place team by the end of the season. And SK Gaming, I think they really do have probably one of the most valuable players in the league on their team in Selfmade. I think that Selfmade is the second best jungler in the league right now. And he's mechanically just insane.
I think him enough is just fine for you to put a win over Excel.
Yeah, but I do I think that Warlup has improved drastically throughout this entire season. I think I did give him a lot of what's it called?
Slack.
No, I didn't. I gave him a lot of grief because he was playing poorly, but he's improved quite a bit, and I do want to give him credit for that. Pyrian, again, he's average. I don't think he's incredible, but he's not feeding. So
I think it's showing why he's he does this he'll have a couple standout games, and then it's okay, you kind of understand what type of player he is as the split kind of evolves.
Yeah, but again, I think that Dreams is the worst player on this team. I still don't like him as a player. And Crownshot, again, Crownshot is one of the most integral part of this team because he does. When they win, it's because he's made a very big impact on the game, but he's just so 50-50. He's either winning the game for this team or he's losing, insanely hard. So I'd like to see a little more consistency out of Crownshot because I do think he's a moderately okay player. And I do think when he's on point, he's really good, but he's still, in my opinion, probably bottom 3, bottom 4 ADCs, so I'd like to see an improvement on that aspect. Consistency is probably one of the most important aspects in the ADC role. So I'm going to say that I don't think SK Gaming has a chance of losing this as it stands right now.
I think at worst SK is going to go 1-1 when you have to factor in who they're going to play against the next day, which is not too good for them. But yeah, SK is going to be a win in my book.
So.
Misfits and Team... Is that a B? That is a B. That's not a V.
It's Team Vitality.
Yeah, gosh.
I mean... I don't think
it's interesting.
I don't think it's that
because when Misfits got their original coach back, they looked like they had some direction on the map, and it looked like the pieces were kind of coming in together. But if you look at their caliber of week, let's look at who they beat last week. Because last week they beat Origen and they beat SK. I mean, realistically, both those teams,
middle of the pack teams, those are the teams they're directly competing with.
I mean, Misfits were power ranked to be third? They should easily be top 3, right?
I mean, no, I don't think they should. Again, a lot of their team comes down to just lack of communication.
That's the thing. I think then you look at Vitality's side is that there's a lot of similarities between these teams. They both have good coaches, so the coaching is not the bad thing. The bad thing is that one team is trying to execute something and not pulling it off. One team is failing at trying to do something early on and it's not working out. Misfits want to be the team fight team that wants to have their laners doing really well and play through Hansama. If Hansama doesn't get ahead, then Misfits kind of fall apart. Now on Vitality, it's a bit different. They can play through Jizuke. They can play through Cableshard, who is the top lane MVP of the split, in my personal opinion, besides maybe Wonder. And then you have Attila, who you can also play through him, but Mowgli hasn't given him any the bot lane any resources. So you can't really say that their bot lane's a liability when the jungler isn't actually even helping them.
I do think that Mowgli's playing substantially better than Attila Jacktroll this season.
I mean, he's not giving them anything.
He doesn't have to. You're not obligated to give him. He's devoting his time and resources to a lane. Not even resources. You're not supposed to give your laners your CS.
I know, but
he's not supposed.
They're getting ganked a lot, and he's not really helping the situation a lot.
Again, they're getting ganked a lot because I think they are obviously pointed out to be what I would say is the weakest part of this team early game. I think that again, I think that Misfits has drastically improved this past week. I think that Soaz is probably still the weak link at this point. I think he's played really well recently, but he's not that laning prowess we saw at the beginning of the season is not there anymore. I just think he's a competent tank top laner. Fevin has had really good standout games. I was really impressed with this last week. He had a lot. He drastically improved this past week.
But I think that when he goes up against a player like Jizuke, Fevin is kind of like a gatekeeper of mid laners. It's he'll be at base of if you can beat him, then maybe you can challenge the top.
I would say that I wouldn't say that because I think that the level he played at last week was incredibly good. I think that level could compete with anybody in the league, but he's not. He has to keep doing that. I'd like to see that happen, translate into this next week. We see the bot lane again. Misfits Hansama, Misfits has Hansama and Gorilla in the bot lane. I think that Gorilla has been, like, again, I think that a lot of his strengths are just not able to be pushed into this team because it just is not something that I could see translate into a different region. But Hansama played pretty decent, but again, a lot of their win last week came off of the back of what I would say was Fevin's performances. I think he played it substantially well, made a lot of things happen around the map, and I was really impressed with the level of play he came. But Team Vitality has two really good laners. I think that Soaz is going to have a lot of trouble with Cavachard, and Juxei is going to definitely put up a fight against like Fevin. This is going to be the most exciting mid lane matchup of the day.
I think that this is the match of the week. I think they'll have. I think they'll have this one.
Let me see. I don't know if they have.
If I had to guess, it's either match of the day. We'll just say that. Like, I think it's going to be Misfits and Vitality, or it could be the last one.
Yeah, those are the two most excited. But again,
I think Vitality is going to win it this time around. I still think they're playing a bit better than Misfits. Yeah, Misfits did good last week against lower tier teams close to them.
What do you mean?
But Vitality had a close game against Fnatic, and Vitality also lost to who else?
Vitality lost to Fnatic,
and they lost to and they beat Splyce. I think that it's interesting. Like, if you said Misfits to win, that's totally fine. But I think that they're just a bit more. How would I say it? The way Misfits are playing, I think they're playing it better. It's just that Maxlore is not being a definitive jungle factor like Mowgli is.
I think that I'm going to point out that I do think that the weakness in bot lane is going to be the deciding factor for this game, because I do think Attila Jackal, although they are good at a laning phase, they're really terrible in their early game presence. Their early game presence is non-existent, and I think that Hansama is just a better late game ADC. So this is going to be why I Misfits are pretty much counteractive to Team Vitality's
early game team fight style.
No, it's more so counteractive to this bot lane, because even if at the early game, I think that Hansama Gorilla are the better laning, and again, Attila Jackal strength, and if they can get out of laning phase, they can win the game. I think that's countered because Hansama Gorilla are still better in the late game. So I think that's going to be. Like, Team Vitality can't play around bot lane anymore. I think they're going to have to be a non-existent factor.
But it's weird,
if he's playing at the level he played at last week, is going to go fine against Juxei. And Soaz is not going to get just demolished by Cavachard. And
oh, no.
I don't know, man.
The way he's been playing, he's been demolishing a lot of people.
He's had a lot of inconsistent games, too, so I'm not going to give him too much credit. I think that Cavachard's been playing like one of the best top laners, but he's had a lot of... he's had a few games where I've seen him struggle.
Were those Victor games?
No, they weren't.
Okay, good.
But I'm saying all around, I think that I'm gonna say that Misfits wins that.
I'm gonna say Vitality wins this round,
because I do think the impact of the jungle is gonna be pretty much the deciding factor, and I think that Mowgli more so focuses the top side, more so as I think that Xerxes focus Maxlore's thank you. Maxlore's focus on the bot side is gonna be why I think that Misfits gets this win, because that's really gonna be the lane you want to focus this time. So,
yeah, I just think that one side of Misfits is better than Vitality's. Like, the top side, I think, for Vitality is better, and then you got the bot side, which is better for Misfits. So it's like, it's one of those counteractive playstyles. If one of those sides gets ahead, I think that the game's over. But V for victory for this time around. He's got Misfits winning. Rogue versus G2. I don't know how you don't predict G2, and if Rogue win this, you did not... That one guy on Reddit would say Rogue was going to win.
So Rogue has played really well recently. I think that they had... not really well, but they've played a lot better than their recent year. But I do still think they're in the bottom 3 in the league. I think their wins pretty much came off the back of XL and who else?
They've beaten XL and Misfits, actually.
Oh yeah, they did beat Misfits, huh?
This is when they were in a slump.
Yeah, this was around Misfits slump. So I think that Rogue, honestly, they're not going to win this game. I think that their strengths are their style is they're coordinated around the map, and they try and make things happen, because as long as they don't fall too far behind, I do think they have the abilities to go against most of the teams. But that's really their weakness, is they fall behind against a lot of these teams because they just have the weakest laning phase in the game.
Hiku and Senkux are gonna get destroyed.
Again, like Senkux is like the difference is the fact that Rogue tries to keep it at bay and make these kind of proactive plays their early game, but G2 is the most aggressive early game team in the league, and it's really just going to again, Rogue doesn't have the laning phase to compete. Kikis is a decent, competent, smart jungler, but it's not on the same level as Janko, so I think is the best jungler in the West right now. So I think that all around G2 probably just matches this. Like Rogue is gonna, if they want to win this, it's gonna have to come off the back of some counter, like some coordinated plays from the bot side, because that's really all I could see happening. And PQ's just not good enough with the lead to do anything with it. So I don't.
PQ should be in the EU Masters.
So yep, I'm gonna say that.
I'm gonna say nothing because I know G2's gonna win. This is the same thing that's gonna happen. It's the same thing I predicted with when Fnatic were like 9th. This is a first place team going up against a 10th place team, and history has shown that that's never favored toward that team, except for like very, very rare times when it's an upset. But yeah, G2's not losing. They're gonna win this game. I won't predict the time. They're gonna win this game in 28 minutes, roughly. That's what I think. The second match of the day, kinda, is Schalke versus Fnatic.
I'm really on the hype train for Schalke. I think they have a lot of talent.
He's like, I'm going down with this hype train.
I think they have a lot of talent on this roster. I think that Memento was proven, again, one of the best junglers, the best jungler in the league last year. I think that Upset still is the best ADC in the league, and I think this crit's favored like meta is gonna favor him quite a bit. I think that again, Ignar's been playing pretty decent this year. He's had a few off games, but for the most part, I think he's been a pretty competent support in helping Upset develop as a player, and helping this like in the laning phase with them. Onuamne has been playing insanely. He's developed rapidly in comparison to his last season. He's came back to form, and I really appreciate that. I think he's helped this team pretty much just help this team grow as a whole, because without him, I think this team would have probably lost like 4 or 5 more games, because his ability to hold down the top lane has been definitive reason why they're one of the top teams in the league. Well, they were one of the top teams in the league.
I think this is an interesting match because one could say Fnatic are doing the whole Cloud9 of last year. They're having they're getting that momentum in. They're getting those wins in. Could this be another hot streak where they go like, they've won their last 2 in a row, right? So theoretically, is this a thing where they're going like 10-1 or 10-2? They've won their last two, yeah. So could this be a upward trajectory for them? I don't know yet, because if you look around what happened against Vitality, that was a really close game. The reason why they won is because not only did Vitality fail at pulling off win conditions, you looked at Reckless, who was playing at his MVP level. But then you look at the other players. Whipple was losing. Broxa took advantage of that. Mowgli did not know how to play Elise properly. And you look at the fact that they haven't necessarily been early game dominant, but not either is Schalke. Schalke's tried to be early game dominant. It's just not really working. So this is a rematch of when Upset and Ignar murdered them. So I think this time around, Reckless kind of wants to get his revenge after going. Schalke actually made history too. They were the first team to make Reckless have more deaths in the game than he's ever had in all those games in EU. So I think that he wants to kind of get his revenge against Upset, and it's going to be that type of game again. But I think working on the issues, I think Schalke is going to win this time around.
I think that again. I really do like the level of play at which that fight Fnatic's came back to. I think that like the weak, like again, we have Abedigi in the mid lane. I think that's going to be what I would say is probably the weakest point of this team. Like, I do think that this mid lane matchup is probably going to go drastically, and I don't even say drastically. I do think it's going to go slightly in favor of Fnatic because recency. I do think that Nemesis is playing better than Abedigi. But the bot lane, again, Upset is one of the best players in the league right now. Mm-hmm. But Reckless and Hylissang have came back to form. I really did like.
I don't know if they came back to form more or less so they faced weaker bot lanes.
I wouldn't say that because, again, it's not just the laning phase that they've improved on. Like, again, I really did like his Braum in the past week. Not this last week, but the week before that. I think it was. Who was it against? Played Braum against Splyce, I think. Yeah, right. I can't remember exactly what that game was.
They played against. Yeah, it was Splyce when they won it. Because that's like 2 weeks ago.
I don't know. Was that 2 weeks ago?
That's 2 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Yeah,
that was the game. Okay.
Oh god.
I really did like again. His Braum was just incredible that game. I think that he's played a pretty poor Braum this year, but it was like the first time that I saw, hey, he actually looked like a pretty decent Braum this year. This game, yeah. Like, but I think that Hylissang's played pretty decently in the recent past week. Reckless has played insanely well with this new patch. I think he's had a few off games, but for the most part, it's definitely seemed like it's benefited him a lot.
I think that the team has come to a certain form, but
Again,
what does this form amount to?
well, I mean,
That's
we
the
have to
thing.
say again, like even Whippo himself, it seems like he's switching back to that. I need to give up my lane pressure, all this lane resources, and I need to devote it more of my time to getting my team ahead. I really do think that's the best form of Whippo we're gonna see because I do think he's a good laner, but that's not his forte. I think that he's still always going to be and is still a weaker laner than like Wonder and Cavachard. We're gonna see if we want to see Whippo shine, he needs to devote his time around the map.
I think the last interview I heard about Whippo, he's like, I'm gonna have to probably play a tank supportive style that doesn't feed.
Like he's just once he's figured out, hey, I need to be more impactful around the map, more so in comparison to the laning phase, he's done a lot better.
Yeah,
I think that Roxa was relevant in the early game, which is kind of surprising because he has not been this entire year. So I think that, like honestly, Fnatic has defined a style. I think they've really came back to form, and Schalke is on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think they really degraded as a team.
you're using big words, man.
Degraded is not a big word.
No, I know, but like people who are watching understand degraded. You mean
Regardless.
what's the word the casters use?
Depreciated? You want a different word? I don't know.
I was gonna say depreciated or faltered, as some of them use.
Regardless.
They've not only faltered, they don't even know what to do anymore.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've pretty much just their style is just completely off. Like
I think people figured out their play style.
there wasn't. You can't figure out a play style again. I don't agree with that statement. I don't think you can just figure out a play style again. I think it's more so everybody has a play style that they play. G2 plays an early game aggressive style.
And then like
all these teams, it's more so that Schalke has faltered. I'll use that word since you wanted me to.
degraded.
They pretty much just they've switched back to what I'd say. Well, not switched back, but they've lost their form, man. Like a lot of their early game pressure, a lot of their if we get this bot lane ahead, they do pretty fine. Which in a meta that should benefit them, which with the crit reverts, they've not came back to form. I think that Onuamne is not playing to the level at which he was playing at towards the beginning and middle parts of the early game season. I think that he's in this past few weeks he's not been playing insanely good. We've seen Memento has just been a complete disappointment recently. I'm really disappointed in that.
I want to say Schalke win this time around. I think I did before, but
I think that
I don't know.
We have a lot of strengths in Schalke, but I think a lot of it's counteracted by what Fnatic is bringing to the table at this point because I do think they are pretty much more decisive in this past week than I've seen Schalke be since like week 3. So I don't think Schalke actually wins. I'm actually going to give the win to Fnatic, which kind of hurts me because I really did have a lot of hope in Schalke.
Choo choo. Give me your tickets. He took his tickets off.
Yeah, I know.
Are you a Fnatic fan now?
This might be the single time I voted against Schalke. Huh?
I'm actually gonna say Schalke.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna give the benefit of the doubt. What I'm gonna do is that I need to see more consistency out of them.
Well, I'd like to see consistency in Schalke not sucking. They've lost like 3 or 4
They've
straight.
lost 4 out of the last 5.
Let's see. Let's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they lost 3
They
straight.
lost 3 out of the last.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna give.
They lost 3 straight, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So for the most part, I'm not gonna give credit. Schalke's played moderately. I mean, they played pretty terrible. They've pretty much lost their form against a lot of these teams that I think they should be better than.
I think that they reverted back to their last year form of just being passive.
But they don't even have those players, so it shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be a thing.
Like last year, people remember they're just a passive team. They're being passive again. That's not.
I'm gonna say Fnatic wins.
I'm gonna say Schalke wins this time around.
Again, Fnatic is more decisive right now. Schalke is not doing enough around the map as it stands right now for me to give them too much credit.
I think a team like Schalke, even though they're having issues right now, can beat Fnatic.
I will give them credit. They have the players.
I think that if you look at Fnatic, they had one good game and a really close one.
Well, I mean, but the really close one is against the second place team.
Yeah.
That's something that I would say. Yeah, you lost against. You barely won against the second place team, but you beat them. That's something you should really be happy about.
I mean, it's okay. After this week, I'll kind of have a definitive answer on it, but I'm not gonna let like 1 week of goodness take away every single other week.
What about the 2 weeks of badness from Schalke?
Oh, I haven't forgot that.
That's something that I think you're giving a little too.
Schalke has been more better, or say more good as proper English, has been more good in the split so far.
They have 2 more wins than Fnatic at this point.
Do they?
Yeah,
oh, you're right.
2. They're barely ahead of Fnatic at this point.
So, I probably should say Fnatic, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They've, because Fnatic has been this way too, and sometimes we still predicted Fnatic even when they were bad.
I did a few times, but I think this is going to be the actual revert of Fnatic's.
I think if they can beat Schalke, which is maybe a top 3 team still, then I think that Fnatic are going to be on an upward trajectory.
So yeah, you're gonna say Schalke, and I'm gonna say Fnatic.
I'm gonna say Schalke.
So
The royal blue.
So again, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you hear any difference, it's because I got this little fancy thing on this, and I got a little cover. It's pretty cool stuff right here. So if you like the quality of it, let me know. And if you don't, I'm not bringing it back, so you're gonna have to stick with it.
You're gonna have.
I do really like this. This stuff makes me look like a fancy streamer and stuff. So
You're gonna have to support our Patreon.
We don't have a Patreon, but if you want to just give me money, just let me know.
Donate $100.
Yeah, that
a month.
A month, yes, monthly. We only take monthly payments of at least $100 a month.
And then if you want your questions answered on Twitch, you'll have to give me another $100.
There we go.
That's pretty much it. I don't think anything else, unless we're gonna just do day 2 right after this.
So, that's pretty much it. I appreciate. You just dropped. You better not have dropped something on my. Okay.
I dropped a candy bar.
See you guys later.
This is the best
anything
candy
to say.
#G2 Army.
Okay.